Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. In the beginning, there was only silence. Not the silence of a quiet room or a still forest, but the kind of silence that hums with possibility, the silence that comes before creation. Out in the dark, beyond where the eye can see and long before the earth ever spun its first slow turn, there were clouds, great swirling clouds of gas and dust, drifting for millions of years like forgotten dreams. These clouds weren't empty, they were full of waiting, full of heat and chance. And when the moment was right, gravity, gentle, invisible gravity, began to pull. It pulled slowly, like a whisper calling home, gathering specks of dust tighter and tighter, until, at the heart of the cloud, something began to stir. A star is born not with a sound, but with pressure, with warmth, with weight collapsing into itself. It begins as a murmur of light, barely more than a breath, but then it shines. A new sun in the vastness. And once it begins to burn, it does so with a hunger unlike anything else in the universe. It eats hydrogen, not with teeth, but with fusion. A process so elegant, it takes the smallest parts of the universe and turns them into heat, light, and life. Deep in the heart of this newborn star, atoms collide, joining hands, forming helium. The star glows brighter. It grows stronger. And for billions of years it dances in balance. Gravity pulling in, fusion pushing out. A quiet war so perfectly matched it feels like peace. But stars are not forever. Even the most patient ones run out of breath. Eventually the hydrogen grows thin, like air running low in a deep cave. The star, still glowing, begins to change. It swells, growing bloated and wide, like a heartbeat too large for its own chest. The outer layers expand into space, turning the star red and soft. A giant balloon of fire drifting through the void. And beneath this swelling surface, a new fire begins. Helium now fuses into carbon, then into heavier and heavier elements. The core grows heavier. The star grows old. Some stars, small and gentle, fade into white dwarfs, tiny glowing embers that cool for eternity. But others, the giants, have a different fate. Their death is not a whisper, but a roar. These massive stars burn through their fuel quickly, and when nothing is left but iron, an element too stubborn to give energy when fused, the balance breaks. Gravity, once gentle, becomes ruthless. It pulls with everything it has, and in less than a second, the entire core collapses in on itself. A star swallows itself. And in that collapse, the universe holds its breath. This is the moment when everything changes. The core shrinks to the size of a city, but contains more mass than the sun. The outer layers crash inward, bounce off the core, and explode outward in a blast so powerful it outshines entire galaxies for a brief moment. A supernova, the death of a star, the most violent, most beautiful end. And in that explosion, the heat and pressure are so intense that new elements are born. Gold, silver, platinum, heavy metals that never existed in the star's life, now burst into existence in a moment of fiery death. The gold in your ring, the iron in your blood, the silver on the moonlit tide, they were all born in this moment. In death, the star gives gifts. What's left behind depends on the size of the star. Some leave behind a neutron star, a dense, spinning remnant that could fit inside a city but weighs more than our sun. Others collapse further still, past the point where even light can escape. A black hole, a mouth in space that eats everything, even time. No one knows exactly what lies beyond its edge, only that once you cross that threshold, called the event horizon, you are no longer part of this universe in the way we understand it. The star that once gave light now gives mystery. It vanishes, but never truly disappears. Now imagine all of this unfolding in silence. No roaring sounds, no crackling fire, just waves of radiation, ripples of gravity moving across the cosmos like soft echoes. Some of these ripples, gravitational waves, travel for billions of years and eventually touch Earth, where delicate instruments listen to them, like seismographs for the fabric of space. When two black holes collide, they send out a tremor, and from those tremors, We learn the story of their past. We listen to the universe the way we might listen to a seashell pressed against our ear, waiting for echoes of long-lost tides. Even now, stars are swallowing themselves all across the sky. You can't see it. It doesn't shout. But it happens every night, beyond the blue, beyond the stars you know by name. Somewhere a star is dying, collapsing, exploding, giving birth to gold. Somewhere else a black hole is forming, hiding its face forever. And all the while the light from old explosions drifts toward us, quietly like the last breath of a candle. When it reaches us, sometimes it glows for weeks as a new, bright dot in the sky, a supernova witnessed by accident, by luck, by a pair of eyes tilted upward at just the right time. The universe does not mourn these deaths, it celebrates them. It turns them into the planets, moons, comets. The heavy metals form rocky cores, the gases left behind swirl into new stars. From death, life begins again. It is not a circle, it is a spiral, slow, vast, patient. And so, when you see gold, remember the star. Not a metaphorical star, but a real one. One that once burned in the deep silence, that swelled and collapsed and exploded. And in that final moment, scattered its bones across the galaxy. You wear a memory of fire. You carry a piece of night. You are made of things born in the heat of a dying sun. Now close your eyes for a moment. Drift into that silence. Imagine the pull of gravity, the hush before collapse, the birth of light, the breath of a star becoming gold. Let's drift deeper, into the heart of that silence where stars collapse and gold is born. Imagine standing at the edge of a nebula, the place where stars are conceived, a cradle of coloured mist, glowing faintly in pinks and blues, stretching across light years. These nebulae are the ash of old stars, the remnants of ancient explosions, but they are not just graveyards, they are nurseries. From the dust of the dead, the future begins again. Every grain of matter carries with it a story, a memory of pressure, of fire, of flight. In the stillness it waits, and over time gravity, that patient sculptor, begins its slow work once more, pulling, gathering, forming a new centre, a new star, a new light. The universe builds with what it breaks. There is no waste in the cosmos. A supernova scatters iron, gold and oxygen across space. That iron might settle into a rocky planet. The oxygen might bind with hydrogen and become water. And the gold, so rare, so beautiful, may someday press itself into the crust of a world, waiting to be found by hands that do not yet exist. In this way we are all connected. Every star that dies becomes the breath of something else. And long after the light fades, its particles remain, wandering, drifting, joining. This is not just poetic. It is the nature of physics, the memory of matter. Your body is made of atoms that were once inside stars. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your skin. None of it began on Earth. Earth is merely a gathering place, a station where star stuff comes to rest for a while. Even now, the atoms that make you are ancient travellers. They have been through suns and storms, they have flown for billions of years before finding their home in you. And one day, long from now, they will return to the sky. This cycle of birth, life, collapse and rebirth moves with a rhythm older than time. In the beginning, only hydrogen filled the dark. But with each new generation of stars, the elements grew more complex. Helium, carbon, neon, magnesium, silicon, iron, until finally gold. Each element like a step in a cosmic symphony. Each note a product of fire and pressure, of collapse and release. And the stars themselves, once shining suns, become composers of this silent music. Scientists call it nucleosynthesis, this alchemy of the cosmos. It is not magic. It is fusion. It is math and pressure and time. But to watch it, to know it, feels like magic all the same. Because how else can one explain the way something as soft and glowing as a star can create metal? Or how an explosion so distant can touch the metal of a ring, or the hemoglobin in your veins? These aren't just facts, they're connections. They are reminders that you are not separate from the sky. You are a story written in its light. Now, imagine two stars, not alone but orbiting one another. A pair locked in a gravitational embrace. Over time, if both are massive enough, both might collapse into neutron stars, those ultra-dense remains of supernovae. And in a cosmic waltz they spiral inward closer and closer until at last they touch. And in that moment another kind of explosion occurs, not as bright as a supernova but stranger. The collision of two neutron stars sends out a wave of light and gravity, a flash across the universe. And in that brief burst more gold is formed than in the lifetime of hundreds of suns. That's how rare gold is. That's how sacred. It is not mined from dirt. It is born from death and gravity and light. In 2017, scientists on Earth watched this happen. They saw the light curve, the wave signature, the afterglow. They measured the presence of heavy elements in the debris, and for the first time they could say with certainty, this is where gold comes from the collision of dead stars, from the union of what once was separate. The light travelled 30 million years to reach us, and when it did, it whispered the secret of its origin. We come from fire. We come from fusion. We come from what was once broken. You might be sitting in a quiet room now, far from the stars, but even here you are connected. You breathe the byproducts of ancient reactions. You live in the gentle pull of Earth's gravity, which itself is shaped by the mass and motion of all things around it. And every time you look at your hands, you see the universe looking back, not metaphorically, but truly. The atoms in you are the record keepers of creation. You are not separate from the stars, you are their memory. So much of the universe is unseen. Black holes drift invisibly. Neutrinos pass through your body by the trillions every second, never touching, never stopping. The gravitational waves from distant cataclysms stretch the fabric of space itself, but we cannot feel them. Only our most sensitive machines can hear their silent song. Yet they are there, always moving, always whispering. And in their silence is the proof that we are part of something so vast, so patient, so ancient it cannot be fully known, only felt. There is a kind of peace in this, a kind of surrender, to know that nothing is wasted, that even collapse has purpose, that even death gives birth to beauty, and that in time all things will change, will transform, will return to the stars, the gold ring on a finger, the light in a telescope, the breath drawn in a sleeping chest. All of it is made of the same things. All of it once was fire. You don't have to understand every equation or theory to feel this truth. It's written in the hush of the night, in the faint twinkle of starlight, in the wind that brushes against your cheek and carries with it particles that once danced in the corona of a sun. The universe is not somewhere else. It is here, in you, around you, made of you. So when stars swallow themselves, they are not ending. They are becoming something new, something scattered and bright, something that will one day fall into the orbit of a newborn planet, settle into the soil, be drawn into the roots of a tree taken up by a living thing, perhaps even a human, and that human might look up one night and wonder where they came from. And if they are quiet enough and still enough, they might hear the answer, not in words but in warmth, in the quiet gravity of belonging, in the slow echo of stardust drifting home. Now let's return one final time, floating softly back through the stars, not as an observer, but as a part of them. You're not just watching the cosmos unfold, you're made of its unfolding. In your chest beats the same fire that once raged in the belly of a dying sun. You carry galaxies in your bones. Your breath echoes the winds that swept through supernovas. In this final chapter of the star's story, we find not just gold or gravity, but a kind of forgiveness, a peace that comes only after everything has been given away. When a massive star collapses and leaves behind a black hole, the universe does not close the book. Instead, it tucks the page quietly, knowing that the story continues, just no longer in visible ink. The black hole spins, sometimes for billions of years, pulling in matter, light, even the memory of time. Yet around its edges, things glow. A disk forms, swirling gas and light, caught in the gravity's grip, heating up, screaming in brightness, even as it falls silent forever. This is called the accretion disk, a final halo. Even in death, the star wears light. Sometimes a jet of energy shoots out from the poles of a spinning black hole, a beam of particles travelling near the speed of light. We don't fully understand how it happens, but we see it. From telescopes on Earth, we watch galaxies with bright centres, quasars, powered by these ancient remains. It's as if the universe refuses to go quietly. Even as it folds inward, it sends out messages, bright, powerful, beautiful. It is saying, I was here, I burned, I mattered. And so do you. Because this story is not about faraway stars, it is also about what they leave behind and what we carry forward. The light from a supernova doesn't just scatter randomly, it lands, it settles, and over millions of years, it becomes the stuff of worlds. Some of it became our sun, some of it formed the planets. On one of those planets, in a warm pocket of water and rock, life began. Molecules dancing in a gentle soup warmed by light that travelled millions of kilometres. And inside those molecules, information, not random but organised, not shouting but speaking softly, like the whisper of fusion from the heart of a star. That whisper became cells. Those cells became trees and insects and animals, and eventually those cells formed eyes that could look back up and wonder where they came from. Eyes like yours. You are a loop in the great story, a knot in the fabric. You are the way the universe sees itself and remembers. The gold in your teeth or in your mother's ring did not just fall from the sky. It was born in a collision of neutron stars, so far away that its light is still racing towards someone else's sky. Think of that. Somewhere light is still travelling from an explosion that made your atoms. It has not yet arrived. It is mid-flight. It carries the signature of your beginning, but it hasn't ended. You are still in motion, not just walking or breathing, but becoming. Every moment you shift, every breath, you release part of your story back to the world. You are a traveller made of travellers. Even when we bury gold deep underground, it does not forget where it came from. It keeps the memory of temperature and time, of forces so immense they change the structure of matter. That memory lives in your bones too. It lives in your heartbeat, in the electric patterns of your brain, in your dreams. You're not just thinking about stars, you're thinking because of them. And what of time? What of the vastness? The universe does not keep time the way we do. It stretches it, warps it. Around black holes, time slows, folding like soft cloth near an invisible weight. A minute here may be an eternity elsewhere, and yet the gold from one star can fall through time and land in a ring given in a quiet ceremony, exchanged in love. Something from the beginning of space can rest in a single trembling hand. This is what makes it all so sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a real one. Sacred because it is rare, sacred because it connects, sacred because it took stars dying to make something beautiful. And that beauty continues, not just in jewellery or coins, but in meaning, in symbols, in memory. We often think of stars as far away, but they are not. Every night their light enters your eyes, their gravity shapes your orbit, their dust lives beneath your skin. They are not distant, they are home, and when they collapse they do not vanish, they simply become something new just as you will, just as all things do. When stars swallow themselves, they teach us about humility, about transformation. They remind us that even collapse is part of the cycle, that even disappearance can lead to illumination, that what feels like the end is only the start of a quieter, deeper story. So tonight, if you find yourself under the stars, take a breath, not a hurried one, a slow one. Let it fill your chest. Feel the pull of gravity holding you in place. Feel the warmth of the earth beneath you, an earth made of things that once burned in silence. And as you exhale, let go of the idea that you are small or separate. You are not. You are vast, you are old, you are light slowed down into form. The star became gold, the gold became earth, the earth became life, and you, soft, breathing, wondering, you became memory. You became voice, you became the echo of a sun that could not survive, but left behind a world that could. And that is not an ending, that is a beginning. Imagine a night darker than any you've ever known. A night before fire, before cities, before even the first heartbeat of life. A time when only the stars whispered across the fabric of space, and even they had only just begun to glow. Now picture one of those stars, not the closest, not the brightest, but one with a quiet secret hidden inside its heart. For millions of years it burned steadily, turning hydrogen into helium, a soft furnace floating in the sky. It did not rush, it did not scream, it simply breathed, in long, slow exhales of light, keeping its balance between gravity pulling in and fire pressing out. Deep in its centre, unimaginable pressure built steadily. Layer by layer the star aged, fusing heavier elements, stacking them like the pages of an ancient book. First helium became carbon, Then carbon turned into oxygen, then neon, then silicon, each formed in a crucible of heat more intense than anything we can feel on Earth. But with each new element created, the star came closer to its final chapter. Because one element, iron, was different. When the core finally filled with iron, the fire began to falter. Iron could not be fused without costing the star more energy than it had left to give. And so the collapse began, slowly at first like a breath being held. Then all at once the core caved inward, falling under its own weight, crushing itself in less than a second. The outer layers, still burning, raced inward, collided with the collapsed core, and exploded outward in a supernova, a shockwave so violent it outshone entire galaxies for days. And in that split-second furnace where temperatures spiked to billions of degrees, something miraculous occurred. For the first time, atoms were forced together in combinations never before seen in that star. Gold was born, not as nuggets, not as coins or chains, but as specks, as mist, as dust laced into the scattered remains of a star's final breath. Gold, the metal that would one day be carved into rings, pressed into crowns, buried in mountains, and passed from hand to hand as a symbol of love and longing, was once nothing more than cosmic debris, flung into space by death. It drifted through the void, pulled by gravity, nudged by radiation, caught in the slow spiral of time until it found a new home, the cloud of gas and dust that would become our solar system. Before there was Earth, before there was even the sun, there was this cloud, rich with the ashes of countless stars. Within it floated bits of gold, platinum, and silver, each a relic of some distant supernova. Slowly, gravity gathered the cloud inward. It thickened, swirled, compressed. In the centre, a new star ignited. Around it, matter began to clump, to collide, to form. Planets were sculpted from the debris, their cores forged in molten metal, their surfaces shaped by impacts and time. Among these, Earth took its place, a small blue world touched by stardust. Gold sank to Earth's depths during its early molten stage, disappearing into the core. But over eons, volcanic eruptions and meteor impacts brought some of it back to the surface. Trapped in rock, hidden in rivers, scattered through veins deep in the crust, it waited, unnoticed, until the day a human hand reached down and found it. Soft, warm to the touch, unchanging. Unlike wood, it did not rot. Unlike iron, it did not rust. And unlike the sky, it did not fade. People saw it as eternal, a mystery, a message from the gods, but they didn't know. It came from the stars. They called it divine. They fought wars over it. They shaped it into idols and gave it to the ones they loved most. But gold is not magic. It is memory. It is history written in metal. Every flake, every coin is the final chapter of a star. And every time it is touched, worn, or given, that story continues. That explosion that scattered gold into space, so brief, so final, lives on not just in the metal, but in the hands that carry it forward. Imagine now the sun, our own star, still burning its hydrogen, still in the middle chapters of its long story. One day, it too will run out of fuel, but it is not massive enough to become a supernova. It will swell into a red giant, then shed its outer layers, leaving behind a white dwarf, a faint ember glowing quietly in the dark. It will not create gold. That task belongs to larger stars, to the ones who give all of themselves in their final moment. And so the gold we have, the gold we hold, is a gift from other stars. Distant, powerful, now gone, but not forgotten. And yet we often forget. We see gold as wealth, as value, as currency. But in doing so we miss its true worth. It is the dust of a star's final breath. It is what remains when all else is lost. It is the quiet echo of fire, frozen in time. When we wear gold, we are not just adorning ourselves, we are wearing the past. We are holding the memory of something that lived and died long before our planet was born. We are connected not just to Earth, but to the stars that no longer shine. This connection is not poetic alone, it is physical. The atoms in gold are heavier than most elements on Earth. They do not break down, they do not fade, they endure, and in that endurance is a lesson. Stars die, planets crumble, life changes, but some things last. Not forever, but long enough to matter. long enough to carry stories across space and time, long enough to remind us that beauty can be born from collapse. So the next time you see gold, in a shop window, in a ring, in a forgotten drawer, pause. Look closer. It is not just metal. It is starlight made solid. It is death turned into something beautiful. It is the night a star became gold. Let's drift deeper into the golden memory of the cosmos, to the places where light and time twist into something solid, something enduring. Imagine for a moment what it means for an element to survive, to endure the collapse of a star, to be born in the briefest blink of existence and yet to persist for billions of years. Gold is not just a substance, it is a survivor. And to understand it, we must understand the strange ballet that plays out across the universe in silence. In the heart of a massive star, the pressures are immense but still bound by limits. Fusion creates heat, and that heat pushes outward against the relentless pull of gravity. For millions of years, this balance holds. The star lives, it shines, but when its core becomes iron, that balance shatters. Iron does not give energy when fused, it takes, and the star, desperate to hold its shape, begins to fall inward. Not slowly, but all at once. A collapse so sudden it stuns the laws of nature. The atoms at the centre are crushed into something denser than anything we know. In that split second, the outer layers crash inward, rebound and explode outward. The energy released is almost beyond comprehension. It is here, in this shockwave, where gold is born, not in the quiet heart of a star, but in the violence of its death. Neutrons flood the expanding shell of plasma. Atoms capture them in rapid succession. They become unstable, mutate, decay, stabilize, forming new elements that had never existed before. This process, called the rapid neutron capture process, or R process, creates the heaviest elements known. In less than a second, the building blocks of treasure, of circuitry, of memory are formed. In that single moment, more gold is created than could ever be mined from the Earth in 1,000 generations. But not every supernova creates gold. The conditions must be just right. Some scientists believe it is not just massive stars that gift us these metals, but neutron star mergers, events even rarer, even more quiet. Imagine two dead stars, remnants of once mighty suns, locked in orbit for millions of years, slowly spiraling toward each other, pulled by gravity in an endless shrinking dance. When they finally touch, the collision releases a flash of light and matter so dense, so rich with neutrons, that entire clouds of gold are created and launched into space. It is a quieter birth than a supernova, but no less profound. And in 2017, we saw it happen. The detectors on Earth picked up a tremor, not in the ground, but in space-time itself. A gravitational wave, the signature of a neutron star merger, passed through our planet. Telescopes turned toward the ripple's origin, and what they saw confirmed a long-held theory, that gold, real gold, was being formed in that distant cataclysm. Light from the explosion carried the fingerprints of heavy elements. In that moment, the universe told us its secret, not in words but in wavelengths. Gold, it whispered, is the child of collision. It is the echo of final embraces, and those echoes travel. They drift through galaxies. They settle in clouds of gas and dust. Over time, gravity does its patient work again, drawing those enriched clouds into new stars, new planets, new beginnings. Our solar system formed from such a cloud, seeded with the ashes of ancient suns and the glitter of gold born in long-gone collisions. As Earth took shape, some of that gold sank deep into the planet's molten core, forever hidden. But some of it stayed near the surface, waiting for the touch of a curious mind. The earliest humans didn't know about neutron stars or nuclear fusion, but they knew gold was different. They found it in riverbeds, soft and shining, unlike any other rock. It didn't tarnish, it didn't change, it stayed. And so it became precious, not for what it could do, but for what it seemed to be, eternal. Over time, gold became symbol and substance, used in art, in ceremony, in currency. It became a measure of trust, a marker of beauty, a container for meaning. But beneath all that human significance, it remained what it always was, dust from a dying star. Today we use gold not just to adorn ourselves, but to reach into space. It coats the mirrors of telescopes. It lines the circuits of satellites. It conducts electricity with precision unmatched by other metals. We send it back toward the stars, embedded in machines designed to study the universe that once gave it to us. In this way, gold becomes a bridge, a way for us to look backward and forward at the same time, a way to remember that we are not apart from the cosmos, but a continuation of its story. Even in the most advanced laboratories, we cannot recreate the conditions of a neutron star merger. We cannot forge gold from base atoms in a furnace. It must come from the stars, from gravity and time and the unimaginable pressure of collapse. And so every gram of gold on Earth is older than Earth itself, older than the sun, older than any mountain or ocean. It has travelled farther than we can imagine, through radiation and vacuum, through stillness and light. And it waits, in veins deep beneath forests and deserts, in flakes carried by ancient rivers, in the cores of meteorites, in the hearts of machines. It is everywhere, and yet it is always rare, always silent, always holding the memory of where it came from. You carry some of that gold within you, not just in jewellery, but in trace amours, in your body, in your blood. You are literally made of stardust with gold in your cells. You think, move, love and dream with atoms forged in the collapse of stars. And the earth beneath your feet too hums with that legacy. The soil grows food from minerals born in supernovas. The oceans hold salts shaped by cosmic dust. The very atmosphere carries molecules born from ancient fire. This is the science of wonder, the poetry of physics. The universe is not a cold place of lifeless numbers. It is alive with memory. Every atom is a letter in its long unfolding story, and gold, soft and glowing, is one of its oldest, most enduring lines. So the next time you touch something made of gold, pause, close your eyes, picture the star that made it, how it lived, how it died, how it scattered its final breath across space. You will never know its name, but you carry its memory, not in thought, but in form, not in story, but in substance. And that in itself is something sacred. You are not just part of this universe, you are its evidence, its witness, its keeper, and the gold is your proof. Now drift with me to the edge of endings, where silence begins again. We've followed the gold from the heart of a dying star to the crust of a small blue world. We've seen it fall through time like a slow-burning thought. But its story doesn't end with fire or fusion or even discovery. Gold's journey is not just about where it came from, it's about what it becomes when it finds us, when the dust of a star is folded into the rhythm of our lives. Long ago, before we knew what the stars were made of, gold was already known to us. In caves and deserts and valleys, early humans pulled it from the earth with their bare hands, seeing in its glow something soft, something untouchable. They didn't need science to understand its power. They felt it. Gold did not rust. It did not shatter. It bent to the hand, but refused to vanish with time. It seemed immune to death. So they gave it meaning. In their hands, gold became hope. A sign of permanence in a world that was always shifting, burning, washing away. And over the centuries, as we learned to shape it, to trade it, to hoard it and honour it, we also forgot where it truly came from. The star faded from memory. The science had not yet arrived to remind us. But the feeling lingered, that this metal, more than any other, carried something eternal. Not just beauty, but source. Not just shine, but depth. Something older than myth. Something that knew how to wait. Today, we walk through a world built on that forgetting. Gold backs currencies. It lies in vaults. It decorates achievements and marks moments. Olympic medals, wedding bands, diplomatic gifts. We pass it from hand to hand, often without thinking of the journey it made. We forget that this soft metal once flew as plasma from the belly of a dying sun, scattered itself across the darkness, and waited eons to become part of our story. But every so often we remember. A scientist peers into the light of a distant collision and sees gold being born. An astronomer traces the R process and understands that this substance we've carried in pockets and crowns is the signature of something sacred. A child looks up at the stars and asks, "What are they made of?" And someone whispers, "The same thing you are." And in those moments, the story comes full circle. Even in technology, gold plays its part, not for beauty, but for function. It carries signals without resistance. It connects circuits with grace, in satellites and telescopes, In the probes we send to the edge of the solar system, gold is there, silent, enduring, doing what it has always done, remembering, conducting, reflecting. It is the starlight we built into our machines, a fragment of the past that makes the future possible. And still, there is more. There is the gold we never see, the veins that lie deep beneath our feet, untouched, the dust that floats unnoticed in ancient rock, the atoms that circle quietly in the ocean, the traces that remain in every leaf that grows from soil rich with memory, the invisible fingerprints of a long-gone explosion that still echoes inside our bodies. Gold teaches us something about time, not the kind we mark with clocks or calendars, but the kind that moves in waves and orbits, the kind that stretches across galaxies and folds into bones. It teaches us that some things do not rush, that beauty can wait, that collapse can create, that silence can speak, and that what we value most may not be the rarest thing, but the oldest truth, the idea that we are not alone, not disconnected, not separate from the stars, but born of them, sustained by them, returned to them. Even now, the light from ancient supernovae is still on its way to Earth. Somewhere in the void, the story of a dying star is travelling toward us. It left long before our species ever stood upright, before we carved gold into coins or placed it on our temples. And one night it will arrive, a soft shimmer in a telescope's view, a whisper in the radiation, another reminder, another line in the poem. The gold we hold is not just metal, it is a memory made solid. It is time that did not fade. It is light, slowed into matter. It is the universe leaving a message we could touch. So if ever you feel small or lost or unimportant in the vastness of space, remember this. Your body carries the atoms of ancient stars. The same processes that built galaxies also built you. The collapse of a star made your bloods iron. The kiss of a neutron star birthed the ring on your finger. You are not separate from the stars. You are what they became. The universe did not give you gold as a treasure. It gave it as a story, one written in fusion and flame, in silence and collapse. And you, in your quiet breathing, in your wondering gaze, are now part of how that story continues. One day the sun will die. It will not explode, but it will change. It will swell and shed and fade into a dim ember. The earth may be gone by then, swept up in the sun's breath, but perhaps something will remain. A piece of gold drifting through space, carrying with it the memory of music and rivers and light. And maybe one day it will find another world, another life, another story. Until then, we hold it. Not just in our hands, but in our meaning, in our reaching, in our dreams. The night a star became gold was not just one night, it was every night after. Light moves differently than anything else we know. It has no mass, but it carries momentum. It does not need a medium to travel, yet it touches everything. It moves at the fastest speed possible in the universe, and yet it is gentle, bathing the world in warmth, in colour, in memory. When you look around you, you're not just seeing things, you're seeing their light, their past, a version of them that has already moved on. What reaches your eyes is not the moment itself, but the echo of it, carried gently on the back of photons. Every shadow, every glow, every sunrise is light telling you a story. But light doesn't just shine, it remembers. It holds the fingerprints of everything it's ever touched. When it comes from a star, it carries the signature of that star's temperature, of its age, of the elements it contains. When it bounces off an object, it takes a bit of that object with it, its colour, its shape, its position in time. Even now, the light reflecting off your skin is carrying your image away from you forever into the expanding universe. It is a kind of soft departure, a quiet farewell that will never return, but will always exist. Imagine the first light that ever shone in the universe. The moment after the Big Bang, everything was dark, not with the darkness of night, but with the absence of form. Particles had not yet become atoms, the cosmos was a sea of chaos. But then, as the universe cooled and calmed, atoms began to form, hydrogen, helium, and suddenly, for the first time, light could move freely. This event is called recombination, and it happened nearly 14 billion years ago. The light that was set free then, called the cosmic microwave background, is still moving through the universe today. If you turn on a television with no signal and see static, a tiny fraction of that noise is the echo of that first light. It is still with us, still remembering. Light is strange. It acts like a wave, spreading and interfering, bending around corners. But it also acts like a particle, a photon, a single packet of energy. It does not lose speed. It does not tire. If left undisturbed, a beam of light could travel forever. It can be bent by gravity, curved by massive objects like stars and galaxies. This bending, called gravitational lensing, allows us to see things that lie behind other things. It's as if space itself becomes a magnifying glass, letting us peek around corners into the distant past. And that's what looking through a telescope really is: time travel. When we look at a star 1,000 light years away, we are seeing it as it was 1,000 years ago. The star may already be gone, collapsed into silence, but its light is still arriving. It is a message delayed, but never lost. Even the light from our own sun takes 8 minutes to reach us. That warmth you feel on your face, it began its journey before you even stepped outside. Some light takes far longer. The galaxies we see in deep space images, like those captured by the Hubble and James Webb telescopes, are often billions of light years away. The light from them left before Earth had life, before it had oceans, before it had form. That light has passed through emptiness, through dust, through warps in space to arrive in a detector here, now, creating an image that is not just a picture, but a memory. The universe remembers itself through light. But not all light is seen. Some is too slow, some too fast, some invisible to our eyes. Ultraviolet, infrared, X-rays, gamma rays, radio waves. These are all forms of light, all forms of energy riding waves across the cosmos. Our eyes can only see a thin sliver of this spectrum, and yet we've built instruments to see the rest, to listen to the universe in wavelengths we were never born to hear, and in doing so we've discovered things that would have otherwise remained hidden. Black holes, neutron stars, the birthplaces of galaxies, the dust between stars that glows in infrared, like the ashes of forgotten fire. Even here on Earth, light remembers. The photons bouncing in a forest at dusk carry the green of leaves, the curve of branches, the shimmer of dew. They hold the shapes of clouds, the texture of bark, the breath of still water. And when they enter your eyes, they do not simply touch the retina. They are transformed into electricity, into signals, into thoughts. You are not just seeing, you are receiving messages from the world written in light. Your brain, complex and miraculous, translates those signals into vision. But even that process carries memory. The light you see now becomes a trace in your mind, a line in your story. And just like starlight, that your thoughts move forward, even as they hold the past. You remember not only the moment, but the light of it, the glow of a room, the look in someone's eyes, the colour of morning. Light carves its way into us, not just as vision, but as feeling. Think of the light that fills a room at golden hour, that soft warmth just before the sun dips low, when everything feels slower, quieter. That light touches everything with tenderness. It does not rush, it lingers on walls, kisses the edge of a cup, falls gently into the folds of a blanket. It makes you pause, and without knowing why, you feel comforted, because light, when soft, feels like memory returning. Even shadows remember. A shadow is not the absence of light, but the shape of its interruption. When light is blocked, it leaves an outline, a map of presence, a silhouette of what stood there. It is not erasure. It is proof. In the same way, the things we do not see, the stars behind the sun, the galaxies behind clouds, still send their light. It's only delayed, only waiting. You too are made of light, not just in the poetic sense, but in the physical one. Your body radiates infrared. Your cells respond to blue light. Your circadian rhythm, your internal clock, is guided by sunlight. Without it, your body forgets when to sleep, when to rise. Light tells you who you are, when you are, where you are. It binds you to the planet's rhythm, to the slow turning of the earth, to the quiet tilt that creates the seasons, your time to light. So when the stars burn, when galaxies collide, when suns are born or swallowed, know that their light is still travelling, still moving toward us, still carrying their story across space. When it arrives, we will capture it in lenses, record it in graphs, translate it into knowledge. But beneath the science, there is always the whisper, "I was here, I burned, I mattered." And when you look into someone's eyes and see light reflected there, know this too. You are seeing them not in the moment, but in the moment's echo. You're always looking at what has just happened. Always one step behind, but never too far. Light moves fast, but memory is faster. It holds on. What light remembers is everything. Every flicker, every flame, every flare, every glance. It carries it forward, into the dark, into the waiting, into the forever. Let us now follow that light deeper, not just across the void of space, but into the layered mirrors of the world around us. What light remembers is not only the birth of galaxies and the songs of stars, but also the smallest things. The glint of dew on grass before dawn, the flicker of candlelight in a quiet room, the shimmer of a memory forming in someone's eyes. Light carries it all, gathers it like threads in a tapestry that never stops weaving. It stitches stories into everything it touches, and in return it carries those stories outward, endlessly. Imagine the journey of a single photon born in the core of a star. It begins its life in chaos. Inside that star it is trapped, bouncing through a maze of atoms for thousands, even millions of years. It collides, scatters, twists. It cannot escape easily, for the density of a star is a heavy blanket. But it waits, it pushes, it persists, and when at last it reaches the surface, it bursts free, launched into space at the speed of light. From that moment on, it will never stop. It may travel for seconds or for 10 billion years, but it will not age. Light does not grow tired. It simply moves. Some of those photons reach our planet. They touch the leaves of trees and begin the process of photosynthesis, the quiet miracle by which light becomes sugar, which becomes food, which becomes us. Every piece of fruit, every stalk of wheat, every breath of oxygen began with this moment. Sunlight captured and turned into life. It's easy to overlook, but the fact remains. You're alive because of sunlight. You eat light in a sense. You breathe the memory of it. Your heart beats in rhythm sculpted by the rising and setting of it. It is not just a force, it is a presence. And not all light that touches the earth comes from our sun. Some comes from distant stars, from galaxies so far away their light left before the earth was even a thought. That light filters into the night sky, faint but steady, a wash of memory from billions of years ago. You can see it with your eyes if you go somewhere dark enough, away from cities, away from noise. Look up and you're not just seeing stars, you're seeing time laid bare. Each point of light is a window, a history still glowing. Even the moon, though cold and quiet, reflects light. It has no shine of its own, but it gathers sunlight and bends it softly down to us, turning night into something gentle, something luminous. And that light, filtered through dust and silence, is not just light, it is a memory made visible. The moon becomes a mirror, holding in its brightness the quiet patience of time. Think too of the ways we use light to remember. We take photographs, freezing a moment of light onto film or sensor. That photo becomes a memory, a smile, a sunset, a loved one's face. But what we are truly capturing is not the person or the place, but the light they reflected at that instant. That exact configuration of photons will never happen again. Each photo is a preserved dance of light, a whisper held in your hands. When you hold a photograph, you're holding light's testimony. We also use light to see what cannot be seen. X-rays show us bones and machines. Infrared cameras reveal the heat patterns of living things. Telescopes peer into distant galaxies using wavelengths our eyes cannot perceive. Fiber optics carry pulses of light through thin threads of glass, translating those pulses into sound, image, thought. We send light through cables to speak to one another. Our voices, our laughter, our longing, they travel not as air, but as flickers of light across the world. Every message you send across the internet rides on the back of a photon. Even now, as you read these words, light is dancing across a screen, carrying meaning into your mind. Light in this way becomes not just a messenger, but a translator. It turns energy into understanding. It turns distance into connection. It turns absence into presence. It brings the far near, the invisible into view, the forgotten back into focus. And still it does this without pause, without need, without exhaustion. There is another way that light remembers, through its absence. Shadows are as important as brightness. A shadow tells you where light has been stopped. It reveals edges, outlines, barriers. But even within a shadow there is softness. Light bleeds around corners, it bends, it diffuses, and so even in darkness there is still a trace, a ghost of illumination. Shadows are memory's footprints. In our bodies, light governs more than we know. Our eyes contain rods and cones tuned to different wavelengths, decoding the world into colour and shape. Our skin responds to ultraviolet rays, producing vitamin D in response. Our brains are wired to wake with light and sleep without it. Our very sense of time, our circadian rhythm, is shaped by the angle of the sun. And when that rhythm breaks, when we live too long in artificial light or in darkness, our bodies begin to forget. We become unmoored, drifting. Light is not just vision, it is orientation. It tells us where we are. It tells us who we are. In the world of science, we use light to measure the stars. Spectroscopy allows us to see what stars are made of by splitting their light into rainbows. Each element leaves a fingerprint, a thin dark line, a pattern that says, "I was here." We can tell if a star is moving toward us or away from us by how its light stretches or compresses, a phenomenon known as redshift and blueshift. In this way, light becomes a map, a record, a confession, a language written across the sky. And still, it keeps going. Every moment, new light is born, in flames, in stars, in lightning, in the eyes of fireflies. Some light flickers for only a heartbeat. Other light has been travelling since the beginning of time. We do not always know which is which, but we receive it all the same. Light does not choose favourites. It touches kings and candles, mountaintops and rooftops, the wings of birds and the backs of hands. It is the most democratic thing in the universe. Given freely, lost freely, never owned, only shared. You may think of light as something outside you, but you are made of it too. Your atoms are arranged by energy. Your warmth is light slowed down. The glow in your eyes when you feel something deeply, that is light too, refracted through joy or sadness or wonder. You are a lens, and through you light becomes more than itself. And so when you walk outside tomorrow and feel the sunlight on your face, remember that light took 8 minutes to reach you. It was born in the core of the sun, struggled for millions of years to reach the surface, then raced across space without pause just to touch you. That warmth on your skin is ancient. That glow in your eyes is real. And that feeling it gives you, that stillness, that peace, is the universe's way of reminding you that you are part of something vast and old and good. Light remembers not in words but in presence, not in books but in shadows and shine. It does not forget. It cannot, because it never stops. It moves forward always, carrying everything it's touched, including you. Now let us close our eyes and walk gently through the final corridor of light's memory. Not in haste, not in brilliance, but in a soft, steady drift funke, like the faint glow of dusk on the edge of the sky. This is where we begin to understand that light does not simply illuminate the world. It connects it, across time, across space, across lives. From the first flicker of a newborn star to the flickering of a candle beside a sleeping child, light draws threads between all things. And though it moves fast, its meaning unfolds slowly, gently, like a story that knows it has time. In the farthest reaches of space, where galaxies spiral like frozen storms, there is light so old it predates our planet. Some of it travels alone, some is bent, tangled, reshaped by the gravity of black holes, and some finds its way to places it was never meant to reach. But wherever it arrives, it leaves a trace, a mark, a warmth, a whisper of what once was. We often imagine space as empty, but space is full of light. Not just the visible kind, but the invisible signatures of all that has ever burned. You are surrounded by it, bathed in it, held by it, even now, even here on Earth. The memory of light lives quietly in the corners of our days. It lingers in windows just before evening falls. It softens the edges of old photographs. It rests in the curve of an autumn leaf. In every reflection, there is a reminder that light never fully leaves. It may fade, it may scatter, but it remembers the shape of what it touched. A hallway still remembers the sunlight from morning. A room remembers the glow of someone's laughter. A face remembers the light of someone now gone. In this way, light carries not only the image of the world, but the feeling of it. It is woven into our memory without us knowing. We remember light not as a fact, but as an emotion. We say a moment was bright, not only because it was well lit, but because it was filled with warmth. We describe people as radiant, places as glowing, lives as illuminated, not because they gave off photons, but because they left us feeling something. Light, in the deepest sense, is not just what we see, it is what we carry. And what of darkness? It too has its place. Not as an absence of light, but as a space where light can rest, where contrast gives form to shape, where the eye can recover, where the soul can listen. In darkness, we see the stars. In darkness, seeds begin to sprout. In darkness, the deepest truths grow. And even in that darkness, light is never truly gone. It is simply paused, patient, waiting to be noticed again. Think of bioluminescence, those quiet organisms that glow in the deep ocean, in damp forests beneath moonless skies. They do not glow to impress. They glow because it is part of them, because even in the places the sun cannot reach, light finds a way to emerge. These tiny sparks, born in jellyfish and fungi and fireflies, are reminders that light is not always grand. Sometimes it is small, quiet, brief, and still it matters. So too with us. We are not made of stars alone, but of the light that poured from them. We glow in invisible ways, through kindness, through memory, through the way we look at someone and truly see them. That too is light. That too travels. When you hold someone's gaze, the photons from your eyes cross the space between you. They touch skin, they reflect, they bounce back, and in that simple exchange there is understanding. Light becomes connection, a bridge not just of vision, but of being. Even as we sleep, light continues its work. The sun does not stop shining just because we close our eyes. It travels over oceans, through clouds, into the dreams of others. Somewhere it is always morning, somewhere it is always dusk, somewhere the light that left a star 1 billion years ago is just now touching the petal of a flower, or the surface of a moon, or the lens of a telescope. It does not ask for recognition, it only arrives. In laboratories and observatories, we now harness light in ways once thought impossible. We use lasers to cut, to measure, to heal. We trap photons in cold atoms to store information, building quantum computers from the stuff of stars. We read DNA with beams of light. We measure time with the oscillations of light. We photograph black holes not by seeing them directly, but by tracing the light they cannot keep. The future is made of light just as surely as the past was. But for all this complexity, light's greatest gift is its simplicity. It moves, it reflects, it remembers, and in doing so it becomes the quiet witness to everything. Not judging, not choosing, just being present. When the last candle burns down, when the final star dims, when the echo of our thoughts fades into the hush, light will still be on its way, carrying the shape of what once was, gently, endlessly forward. You may not see your own light. It may not shine in the ways you expect. It may not be as bright or loud or bold as the world sometimes demands. But it is there, in every kindness, in every quiet act, in the way you listen, in the way you hope, that light moves through others, through time, through distance. You are not a flame that flickers alone. You are part of the great glow, passed from being to being, unchanged in speed and unwavering in purpose. And when you look up at the stars again, whether through glass or water or simply your own eyes, remember this. You are not just seeing them. They are seeing you. They are sending their light not to impress, but to connect. You are a receiver of ancient signals, and also a transmitter. You send out your own light every day, in voice, in gesture, in thought. And somewhere someone may feel it, may carry it, may remember it. Because light, even at its faintest, is never wasted. What light remembers is all of us, and through it, we remember ourselves. Between the great spirals of stars, beyond the glittering arms of galaxies, there is a space that seems empty, vast, quiet. But this space, the intergalactic medium, is not nothing. It breathes, not in the way lungs do with air and motion, but in the way the tide breathes across a shore, gently, slowly, always moving, always returning. And though it may seem lifeless, it holds a kind of quiet mystery, one that scientists are only just beginning to hear. To most, the word galaxy calls to mind a swirl of stars, gas and dust rotating together like a dance frozen in slow motion. And that is true. Galaxies are cities of stars. The Milky Way, the one we call home, is just one among trillions. But galaxies do not float alone in perfect silence. They move through something. Around them, between them, stretched like a thin fog across the universe, is a substance so subtle that it can go unnoticed, even as it shapes everything. It is gas. Ionized, thin, scattered gas, the leftover breath of the Big Bang, warmed by radiation, stirred by time. This intergalactic medium, or IgM, is mostly hydrogen, the simplest and most ancient element. It is the first child of creation, born in the first few minutes after the Big Bang, when the universe was still a seething soup of particles. As the universe cooled, protons and electrons found one another and held on. From this union came hydrogen, and though stars would later forge heavier elements, carbon, oxygen, iron, it is hydrogen that still fills most of the cosmos. It floats between galaxies, not in thick clouds, but in wisps so thin that a single cubic meter may hold only a few atoms. And yet, stretched across trillions of light years, it adds up. It becomes the invisible ocean in which all galaxies drift. But this ocean is not still. It moves. It flows. Galaxies pull it in like lungs drawing breath. Gravity tugs at it, shaping filaments and rivers of gas that feed the formation of stars. These filaments are like the veins of the universe, streams of hydrogen connecting galaxy to galaxy, structure to structure. If you could see the universe as a whole, not with eyes but with imagination, it would not look like a scatter of dots. It would look like lace, like frost on glass, a cosmic web. And that web is woven from the breath between galaxies. Within this web, galaxies are born, the gas flows inward, compressed by gravity, spinning and heating until, in the heart of it, stars ignite. Whole galaxies rise from these whispers of gas, growing, colliding, changing over billions of years. And as they live, they give back. Supernovae explode, black holes feed and exhale, stars shed their outer layers. Each act sends gas back into the medium, enriching it, warming it, stirring it into motion again. There is a rhythm here, a cycle of breath. Inhale, gas drawn inward, stars born. Exhale, gas expelled, enriched, returned. This is not the breath of lungs, but the breath of time. It happens slowly, on scales beyond our daily understanding. But it is breath all the same, a giving and taking, a pattern of presence. And though this gas is invisible to human eyes, we can still detect it. When light from a distant quasar, a brilliant galaxy with a feeding black hole at its centre, passes through the intergalactic medium, it changes. The gas absorbs certain wavelengths, leaving fingerprints on the light. These are called absorption lines, and by studying them, scientists can map the invisible. They can trace the shapes of gas filaments, the temperatures of ancient clouds, the motion of matter across the cosmos. We are, in this way, listening to the breath between galaxies. But there is more. This space, this medium, may also help explain a mystery that has puzzled scientists for decades, the mystery of missing matter. According to our best measurements, the visible matter in the universe, dust, planets, gas, dust, counts for only a fraction of what we expect to find. Much of it seems to be gone, or rather hidden, and recent research suggests that a great portion of this missing matter is not missing at all. It is here in the IgM, thin and warm and quiet, stretching between galaxies, waiting to be noticed. To call it empty is no longer accurate. It is space filled with breath, with memory, with movement. It carries the past, the ashes of stars, the glow of ancient radiation. It shapes the future, guiding galaxies, fueling starbirth, whispering to gravity. It is not blank, it is full, and we, floating within one galaxy among many, are breathing its results. Every atom in your body came from a star that once drew gas from this medium, burned it, transformed it and returned it. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your breath. All of it once drifted through this space, untethered, unseen. Before it became part of you, it was part of everything. The same breath that feeds galaxies now feeds life. We often forget how connected we are. We live in homes, on streets, in cities, beneath clouds. We look up and see stars, but we rarely feel that we belong to them. But we do. You are not separate from the intergalactic medium. You are the dust that returned, the breath that became a song, the silence that turned into thought. Even now, the hydrogen atoms that once floated freely between galaxies pass through you, in the air, in the water, in the very molecules that carry your thoughts. You're not just standing on the Earth, you are moving through space, wrapped in a tide that began at the beginning of time, a tide that never stopped flowing. And so when you think of space, do not picture only the stars. Picture the space between them, the breath that binds them, the quiet that holds them together. For in that breath is the memory of everything that was, and the promise of everything that might still be. Let's drift deeper into the silence that stretches between galaxies, not as an emptiness, but as a presence, the quiet body of the cosmos breathing in slow motion. The intergalactic medium, spread thin across time and space, is not an afterthought of creation. It is the canvas on which galaxies are painted. It is the breath that never stops. And though it is too faint to see, too wide to hold, it touches everything. It moves through the universe like mist through a sleeping forest, unseen, but shaping every curve, every glimmer, every form. This breath is ancient. Before galaxies formed, before stars burned, there was hydrogen, free and drifting, shaped only by gravity and time. It gathered into webs, filaments stretching across the newborn universe. These structures, faint and delicate, became the scaffolding for everything to come. Where filaments crossed, matter thickened. Where it thickened, gravity grew. And where gravity grew strong enough, galaxies ignited. But the breath never left. It still flows between the stars, still curls around the bones of galaxies like wind around mountains. This web, this cosmic lace, is not uniform. Some parts are warmer, stirred by the heat of supernovae and black hole winds. Others are colder, quiet pockets holding echoes of the early universe. In some places, the gas flows freely. In others, it pools, heavy with memory. And like breath moving through lungs, it brings with it the ingredients of life: hydrogen, helium, and over time oxygen, carbon, nitrogen. These elements, forged in stars and expelled in their death, ride the currents of intergalactic gas, spreading richness into the void. Every galaxy, including our own, lives because of this flow. Galaxies may look still in photographs, but they are always moving, spinning, drifting, colliding, feeding. And when they feed, they draw in this thin breath. Streams of gas funnel into their hearts where it cools, condenses, and becomes the seed of new stars. It is a process that takes millions of years, but the rhythm is steady. A galaxy inhales, and from that breath new light is born. Stars flare to life, planets coalesce, and around at least one small sun, life awakens and begins to ask questions. But breath is not always gentle. Sometimes it becomes a wind. When stars die in explosions, they push matter outward. When black holes devour, they also expel, jets of energy and gas racing at near light speed, carving through their galaxies and out into the medium beyond. These feedback winds can heat the surrounding gas, slow the birth of new stars, and change the flow of entire regions. Breath becomes voice. Voice becomes influence. Even in space, even in silence, nothing is truly still. Scientists have learned to trace these flows. Using radio telescopes, they map hydrogen emissions from gas that lies between and beyond galaxies. With X-ray observatories, they detect the hot, ionized plasma that glows faintly from ancient collisions. And with absorption lines captured from distant quasars, they read the fingerprints of the medium itself, each gap, each shift in light, telling a story of temperature, density, and motion. Like listening for footsteps in fog, we find the presence of what we cannot see by the way it touches light. One of the most remarkable things about this intergalactic breath is its ability to connect. Not just matter to matter, but era to era. Some of the gas now drifting in space was once part of a star in a galaxy long gone. Some may someday form part of a star not yet born. There are atoms floating between galaxies that have never been part of anything, waiting for their first chance to belong. And there are atoms that have lived many lives. Stars, dust, gas, stars again. They cycle endlessly, not in a loop, but in a slow, sprawling spiral of change. In this way, the breath between galaxies becomes not only a medium of creation, but of memory. It holds the past in suspension. It carries the future in promise. When we look at the universe on its largest scales, we do not see chaos. We see patterns, filaments, clusters, empty voids surrounded by rivers of matter. It is a structure too vast to comprehend and too delicate to ignore. It is the signature of breath stretched over billions of years, and though it feels far away, this breath touches us too. The atoms that once floated in the intergalactic medium are now part of your body, part of your skin, your lungs, your blood. You are not just breathing the air of Earth, you're breathing the consequence of stars. You're breathing what once drifted in silence across the dark, and with every breath you take, you continue that cycle. You inhale oxygen that was forged in a star and exhaled from a tree. You breathe atoms that once belonged to strangers and will someday belong to someone else. You are a vessel through which the universe breathes itself. This idea, at once so large and so intimate, changes how we see ourselves. It softens the borders between self and world, between here and there, between then and now. The breath that moves between galaxies is the same breath that moves through you. Slower, simpler, but no less meaningful, you are not apart from the cosmos. You are a curve in its current. Even now, the Milky Way moves through space, pulling gas from the medium around it. This gas will fuel future stars, future worlds. It will shape the path of time, and billions of years from now, when our sun is gone and our earth is dust, that same breath will still be moving, still giving, still receiving. And perhaps, somewhere in a distant galaxy, a being will look up at the stars and ask, where did this come from? And the answer will be the same, from the breath, from the silence between galaxies, from the medium that remembers everything and forgets nothing. We often think of breath as something only the living do, but the universe breathes too, not with lungs or air, but with motion, with exchange, with memory. And in that breath, we find meaning not because we must, but because it is there waiting, like the soft rhythm of wind through the leaves. So let us breathe with the universe, slowly, deeply, together. Let us now float gently into the closing silence where the breath between galaxies slows but never stops. In this final part of the story, the universe feels wider, but also closer, because the more we understand the stillness between stars, the more we recognize ourselves in it. It is not empty, it is not dead. It is the space where everything comes from and where everything returns. The intergalactic medium is not a void, it's a cradle, and in its invisible breath the story of existence continues to unfold. All across the cosmos, galaxies are still growing, still changing. Some are pulling in gas from cosmic filaments, slowly drawing in the raw ingredients of light. Others are drifting away from each other, stretching space itself as the universe expands. The further apart they move, the more difficult it becomes for gas to pass between them. In this expanding universe, the breath grows thinner, quieter, but it doesn't disappear. It stretches, slows, cools. The rhythm is not broken, it is simply softer. In these cooler places, where galaxies are fewer and time feels more distant, gas can linger for billions of years without forming anything. It waits, it listens, it holds the memory of things that no longer burn. Scientists call these regions cosmic voids, vast pockets of space where almost nothing shines. But even here, the medium flows, quietly, patiently. The same hydrogen that once gathered stars now drifts like a forgotten dream, still part of the great cycle, still able one day to begin again. And that is the quiet miracle, that even in the faintest breath there is the potential for light. It may take billions of years, it may never come, but the possibility remains. Nothing in the universe is truly still, even the coldest, emptiest places are wrapped in motion. Slow, subtle, soft. If you could hover in a void between galaxies and wait long enough, you might see a thread of gas stretch past you. A remnant of a supernova. A breeze from a galaxy too far to name. You would not hear it, but you might feel it. The hush of presence. The movement of something that remembers. And even as the universe grows older, the breath continues to change us. Gas flows into galaxies and is turned into stars. Those stars forge heavier elements, which are then scattered back into space. The cycle repeats, each round adding more complexity, more richness, more potential. From hydrogen to helium, to carbon, to to the molecules that form water, and sugars and thought. You are not just shaped by this process, You are the result of it. The breath between galaxies became your bones, your blood, your brain. You are a condensation of intergalactic memory, wrapped in seethed skin. We often think of ourselves as small in the face of the cosmos, and perhaps that is true, but we are not separate from it. We are its expression, its consequence. The space between galaxies does not just hold galaxies apart, it holds the path that brought us here. It is the quiet space in the story that makes the music sweeter, the pause before the next note, the silence that gives shape to the sound. When astronomers map the cosmic web, the structure formed by the intergalactic medium, they are not just looking at matter, they are looking at history, at motion frozen in time. Each filament, each thread of gas, is a timeline stretching back to the beginning. And when we study that web, we find ourselves within it. Our galaxy, our star, our planet, all nestled within one of those threads. We are not random. We are not lost. We are connected. Even in the smallest moments of life, the breath of the universe finds its echo. The inhale before a thought, the hush before sleep, the space between heartbeats. You carry the rhythm of galaxies within you. You move through time not as a stranger to the stars, but as their continuation. The atoms in your body were once scattered across space. They were once part of nothing. Then they became part of you. And someday they will drift again, return again, become again. So let this thought settle like dust, that in the space between galaxies, the universe is not asleep. It is dreaming. It dreams in hydrogen and motion, in slow turns and soft collisions. It dreams in filaments and waves, and in its dreaming it makes space for light, for memory, for change, for you. And one day, far in the future, when stars grow rare and galaxies grow dim, the intergalactic medium will still be there. It will stretch thin across a colder sky, but it will not forget. It will carry the last breaths of stars, the final sparks of suns, the echoes of every galaxy that ever was. And even then, long after Earth is dust and memory, the universe will still be breathing. The breath between galaxies is not an ending. It is a beginning stretched across forever. Far from Earth, where the sun is dim and the sky turns black in every direction, there floats a world wrapped in silence and grace. Saturn, the great ringed planet, spins in slow majesty at the edge of the visible planets, not with the noise of storms or the thunder of footsteps, but with stillness. Around it, millions of pieces of ice and rock orbit in perfect rhythm, forming rings so wide they could stretch from Earth to the moon. And yet, they are so thin that if you were to glide your hand along their edge, you would pass through them like mist. They are not solid walls, they are songs, frozen in motion. There is a kind of peace that Saturn carries, a calm not found in heat or light, but in distance. The further we drift from the warmth of the sun, the quieter the planets become. Saturn does not shout. It turns slowly. It whispers in curves and shadows, and in that whisper there is something deeply ancient, something that remembers not just the formation of planets, but the echoes of the solar system's first breath. Saturn has been here for over 4 billion years, turning calmly while the Earth grew continents and oceans, while life rose and fell, while human hands reached up and named the stars. And all the while its rings remained, not untouched, but unbroken. These rings are made of ice mostly and scattered dust. Some chunks are the size of mountains, others no bigger than snowflakes. They move in orbits, tracing invisible lines in space like a ballet with no music, just movement. From afar they appear solid, shining bands of light that wrap the planet like a halo. But up close they are countless separate pieces, each with its own path, its own rhythm, dancing in harmony with all the others. Where did the rings come from? Scientists believe they may be the remnants of a moon that came too close. Caught in Saturn's gravity, torn apart by tidal forces, it shattered. Its pieces did not fall, but instead began to orbit, caught between destruction and rebirth. Others think they may have formed from leftover ice that never became part of a moon, frozen relics of the early solar system. Either way, the rings are not permanent. They are beautiful, yes, but fleeting on cosmic scales. Over time they will fade. Gravity will pull them inward. Saturn will reclaim them. The silence will grow deeper. But for now, they shine. And in their shining, They remind us of something we often forget, that stillness is not emptiness, that silence is not absence, that beauty can be found not only in stars but in the space between things. Saturn's rings are a space of in-betweens, between planet and sky, between movement and pause, between past and future. Imagine standing on one of Saturn's moons, perhaps Enceladus, where ice geysers erupt into space and fall back like frozen rain. From there you could see the rings arching overhead, bright against the dark. They would not make a sound, there is no air to carry it, but you might feel their movement. You might sense their story, carried not in words but in their shape, in their shimmer. Saturn's silence is not quiet by accident. It is shaped by distance, by time, by gravity and patience. The planet itself is a giant of gas and wind, its surface undefined, its clouds stretching in bands of gold and cream. Beneath those clouds there may be storms larger than Earth, lightning that cracks across thousands of miles, but from the edge, from a telescope, from a moon, you would not hear it. You would only see the turning, the shape, the grace, and there is something humbling in that, something comforting, that a planet can be so large, so powerful, and yet so still, that motion can exist without noise, that a storm can swirl for centuries and never shout. On Earth, we often associate power with volume, with explosions, with fury. But Saturn reminds us that power can also be quiet, that gravity does not need to roar, it only needs to pull, gently over time. The rings are divided into named sections, the A ring, the B ring, the C ring, and smaller gaps and divisions like the Cassini division, a space where gravity from a nearby moon keeps the particles away, creating a lane in the dance. These gaps are not accidents. They are caused by resonance, by gravitational nudges from Saturn's moons, each keeping the others in check. It is a silent conversation written in motion, a balance so delicate that it seems like music made of math and memory. Saturn has many moons, over 140 now known, each with its own orbit, its own face. Some are small and irregular. Others, like Titan, are larger than Mercury, with thick atmospheres and lakes of methane. These moons are not just rocks. They are companions. They help shape the rings. They tell us stories of collisions and captures, of ice that moves like dust, of time that slows into the cold. And among them, Saturn sits at the centre, not as a king, but as an anchor, holding the system together, not with force, but with presence. When the Cassini spacecraft arrived at Saturn in 2004, it began a slow, sweeping observation of the planet and its rings. Over 13 years, it orbited again and again, capturing images and data, flying between the rings, diving into their shadows. It sent back visions we had never seen before, close-ups of icy particles, moon shadows cast on rings, the glow of starlight diffused through crystals. It showed us that what seemed simple was, in fact, intricate, that what seemed distant was alive with movement. And when its mission ended, Cassini was directed to dive into Saturn itself, so as not to contaminate any of the moons with Earth's microbes. It burned up in the atmosphere, leaving behind no trace but memory. And what a memory it left! A memory of quiet grace, of icy rings glowing in twilight, of a planet spinning in silence, carrying the weight of history. Cassini taught us that exploration doesn't always mean conquest. Sometimes it means listening, watching, letting beauty reveal itself on its own terms. So now, when you think of Saturn, do not think only of its rings as decorations or ornaments. Think of them as footprints, as frozen echoes, as the remains of something lost, transformed into something luminous. Think of their silence as strength, their movement as patience, their presence as a reminder that even in the farthest reaches of space, where sound cannot travel and warmth cannot stay, there is still elegance, still structure, still rhythm. The silence beneath Saturn's rings is not the absence of music. It is the pause between notes. Let's drift further now, not through the rings, but into the meaning of their quiet dance. What Saturn's rings show us is not only the physics of orbit or the science of shattered moons, but the poetry of structure, how something broken can become something beautiful, how the leftovers of destruction can turn into art. These rings are not alive in the way we are, but they move with purpose, shaped by forces older than memory. Every icy particle is in motion, but together they seem still, like snowfall frozen in time, or like thoughts suspended in a dream. It's easy to forget that what we see as elegant loops of light is really a collection of fragments. Dust, pebbles, chunks of ice, leftovers. Their shapes are irregular, their collisions constant. They bump, spin, scatter and settle again. And yet from a distance all we see is the curve, the delicate halo around a planet too far to hear. This is one of Saturn's gifts, the ability to show us how chaos can become calm when seen from far enough away, how turbulence can seem like peace when stretched across space and time. The rings are also a study in balance. Each particle is pulled towards Saturn by gravity, yet moves fast enough to stay in orbit. This fragile equilibrium keeps the system intact. If a particle slows, it falls inward. If it speeds up, it drifts outward. But most stay in place, circling endlessly, each one held by the invisible tension between falling and flying. In that tension, there is a quiet reminder. So much of life is like that. A balance between weight and motion, between being held and moving forward. These rings also reflect light in ways no solid object can. Because they are made of ice and spread thin, they scatter sunlight like a lens. Sometimes they glow brightly, lit from behind or from the side, revealing their layered complexity. Other times they almost disappear, seen edge on, they become thinner than a single shadow. They show us how appearance can change with perspective. What once seemed brilliant can seem gone, and what once felt invisible can shimmer into view, all depending on the angle, the season, the light. And beneath them, Saturn turns slowly, his day just over 10 Earth hours, its year nearly 30 Earth years long. The rings follow, spinning in a plane aligned to the planet's equator. But that plane tilts with Saturn's seasons, revealing different angles of the rings over time. Every 15 years, the rings appear edge on to Earth and nearly vanish from view. Then they widen again, open, close, like breath, like a curtain that pulls back and then drops again. Saturn's rings breathe in light and then fall into shadow, over and over, in cycles older than any story. When spacecraft pass near Saturn, they see more than just circles. They see patterns within patterns, ringlets, waves, gaps. Some of these are caused by tiny moons embedded in the rings called shepherd moons. These moons clear paths, maintain edges, stir up the particles around them. They act like caretakers, sculptors holding the ring's shape with their gravity. Even among dust there is guidance. Even in orbit there is companionship. Some waves in the rings are echoes of events that happened long ago, a comet passing too close, a moon that wobbled, a distant collision. These disturbances leave marks, spiral patterns that drift slowly over time like ripples frozen on the surface of a lake. We can look at these patterns and count their spirals, measure their motion, and from them tell the time of their origin. The rings remember, not in thoughts or language, but in motion, in shape, in the curve of their scars. And that is another quiet truth Saturn offers. Memory is not always loud. It does not always arrive in voices or names. Sometimes it arrives as a ripple, a tilt, a shimmer in the dark. Saturn's rings are memory in motion, never static, never lost, always shifting gently with the past. When Cassini passed through the ring plane, it recorded not just images but sounds, translated from particle impacts and magnetic data. These weren't sounds in the way we hear them on Earth. Space is silent. But when translated into human perception, they became something like whispers, taps, tiny notes played on an invisible drum. Listening to them is like hearing the hush of wind through leaves you can't see, or the soft ticking of time in a room that has forgotten what clocks are. The silence beneath Saturn's rings is full of motion, full of presence, full of the kind of music that can only be felt, not heard. It's a reminder that silence is not the absence of activity, it is its own kind of language. A conversation that takes place without words, a presence that doesn't need to explain itself. And Saturn's rings are not alone in their quiet song. Jupiter has rings, thin and dark. Uranus and Neptune too, though faint. But only Saturn's rings catch the light in a way that turns them into wonder. They are not necessary. The planet would turn without them. But their presence gives Saturn character, depth, grace. They are not for utility, they are for awe. As the sun slowly fades over billions of years, Saturn's rings will too. They are not permanent. Micrometeoroid impacts and radiation slowly grind the particles down. Gravity pulls them inward, like a tide pulling sand from a beach. In 100 million years, Perhaps less. The rings may disappear. They will become part of Saturn once more, absorbed, remembered, quietly erased. The sky will turn and the halo will dim, but the story will remain in data, in memory, in the minds of those who once looked through a telescope and saw something that seemed like a dream stretched across the stars. And in that way, the rings will not be gone. They will live in our stories, in the way we imagine other worlds, in the way we look at stillness and understand it can hold meaning. They will live in every child who looks up and wonders what else is out there, in every artist who paints a circle of light, in every scientist who builds a telescope and listens for silence. The beauty of Saturn's rings is not just in how they shine, but in how they ask nothing of us. They do not demand attention. They do not cry out. They simply turn again and again, wrapped around a planet that will never know we named it. A planet that will outlive our cities, our memories, maybe even our species. And yet for a time we were here to see, to listen, to understand. Saturn shows us that silence is not the opposite of meaning. It is where meaning gathers, where time slows, where the heart remembers without needing to explain. Beneath the rings there is no rush, no noise, just gravity and light, just presence, and that is enough. Now let us drift one last time through the quiet halo of Saturn, not to discover but to remember. We have travelled through rings that are not solid, yet they hold the shape of stories. We have watched particles collide in silence, orbit in patience, and scatter light like frozen breath. Now we listen not for new answers, but for what silence teaches us when we stop asking. Saturn does not speak with thunder. Its rings do not roar, yet their presence fills space with something more powerful than sound, a kind of reverence, as if the planet itself is a poem written in motion and stillness. Beneath the rings, the planet spins in solemn rhythm. Its equatorial winds race faster than any on Earth, yet from a distance there is no turbulence to see, only the bands of golden cloud curving softly from pole to pole. Saturn is made mostly of hydrogen and helium, the same materials that fill stars. And though it burns no fire, there is warmth within, leftover heat from its formation slowly escaping over time. That inner warmth, wrapped in layers of gas, breathes outward invisibly. It is a reminder that even the coldest seeming places may still hold fire at their core. But it is the rings we return to, their beauty, their silence, their meaning. If you were to float just above them, the particles would not appear as separate dots, but as waves, subtle, layered, carving ripple-like shadows across each other. A ring is not a single thing, but a relationship, a moment of balance captured in space. These icy pieces move too fast to freeze, yet too slow to fly away. They hover between gravity's pull and motion's push, and in that balance they endure, not because they are strong, but because they are in harmony. Perhaps this is what Saturn teaches most clearly, that harmony is not stillness without change, but movement in cooperation. Nothing in the ring stays exactly where it is, but nothing drifts too far. Each piece plays its part, responding to the gravitational whispers of nearby moons, of Saturn's mass, of distant disturbances. The entire system is like a symphony with no conductor, each note responding to another, never clashing, never ceasing, just circling, just being. Even the gaps in the rings are full of meaning. The Cassini division, for instance, is not empty because matter failed to form there. It is empty because it is maintained that way, kept clear by the resonance of a nearby moon, which gently tugs on ring particles, keeping them from settling. This absence is not a mistake. It is a collaboration, a space kept clear so that the structure can sing. Even the emptiness is part of the design. And isn't that true of us too? That our lives are not just made of what we gather, but also of what we hold space for? Silence, in conversation, rest, in movement, grief, in joy. Saturn's rings remind us that even the gaps are essential, even the pauses carry weight. In time the rings will fade. Already particles drift inward, drawn by Saturn's gravity. Rain falls from the rings into the atmosphere, invisible but constant, a drizzle of ancient ice and dust returning home. This process is slow, a whisper stretched across eons, but it is steady. Someday the rings may vanish entirely, and Saturn will spin without its crown. Yet the planet will not be diminished. It will remain what it always was, a presence, a rhythm, a keeper of serenity. And the memory of the rings will continue, not in the sky, but in us, in the data we've collected, in the stories we tell, in the images etched into the minds of those who once looked up and saw a golden arc in the night sky and knew for a moment how wide the world truly is. The rings will live in the reflections of those who stood beside telescopes in cold fields, in the questions of children who learn that planets can wear halos, in the poems that speak of distance and return, of silence and light. Saturn's rings also remind us of time, not as something we measure, but as something we move through. The rings are ancient, yet they change. They fade slowly, but never all at once. They show us that decay is not always a fall. Sometimes it is a dance, a surrender, a soft return to source. They are a gentle unfolding, not of endings, but of transitions. And in this way, they teach us how to let go, not with fear, but with grace. So when you next look at the stars, or when you think of space, or even when you sit quietly in your own stillness, remember that there is beauty in things that do not last forever. That even the most luminous halos may one day dim, but their glow changes those who saw them. The rings of Saturn do not need to last forever to matter. They need only to have been, to have turned, to have caught the light. In them we see not only the physics of orbit, but the poetry of balance, not only the science of motion, but the silence of meaning. They are a question written in ice, an answer written in gravity, and they wait patiently for us to understand, not with noise, not with urgency, but with presence. Cassini's final orbit, the grand finale, brought it closer to Saturn than ever before, diving between the planet and its innermost ring. It sent data until its signal disappeared into the clouds. And then silence. A spacecraft, built on Earth, now part of Saturn, not lost, not wasted, returned. And so the story of the rings becomes part of our own, a reminder that some journeys end not with a crash, but with a quiet reunion, that some stories are told not in voices but in orbits, that some songs are sung not in sound but in silence. The silence beneath Saturn's rings is not the end of something, it is the beginning of understanding. In the heart of space, where the stars grow thin and silence thickens into velvet, there are shadows that move without light. Not cast by the sun, not shaped by walls or trees, but born of gravity itself, deep pockets in the fabric of the cosmos where matter collapses, where time bends, and where nothing, not even light, escapes. These are black holes. Not holes in the way we imagine emptiness, but the densest, most secretive objects in existence. They do not shine, they do not reflect, yet they burn, not with fire but with force. They are the shadows that burn in empty space. To understand a black hole, begin with a star, not a small one, not like our sun, but a giant, one whose core has burned through its fuel, one whose light can no longer push back against the weight of its own mass. When that balance fails, gravity wins. The star collapses inward, folding in on itself, squeezing atoms so tightly together that even the space between them vanishes. What remains is a point, a singularity with mass but no volume, with gravity so strong that escape becomes impossible. Even light, the fastest traveller in the universe, cannot outrun it. And so from the outside it looks like a shadow, not a solid object, but a region of darkness surrounded by silence. The edge of this region is called the event horizon. It is not a wall, it does not reflect or shimmer, it is simply the line where escape becomes impossible. Cross it, and you are lost to the outside world, not destroyed but hidden, pulled in, folded into a mystery deeper than time. But black holes are not just endings, they are beginnings of understanding. Around them the universe behaves differently. Time slows as you approach. Light bends, curving inward, space stretches, a clock near a black hole ticks more slowly than one far away, and to an outside observer someone falling in would seem to move slower and slower, never quite crossing the edge. From the inside the fall is swift, but from the outside it is eternal. The laws of physics do not break. They bend, they twist, they whisper secrets we are only starting to hear. And black holes are not rare. They lie at the heart of most galaxies, including our own. In the centre of the Milky Way, hidden behind clouds of dust and stars, is Sagittarius A, a supermassive black hole with the mass of 4 million suns. It sits subtly, spinning slowly, shaping the motion of stars with its invisible hand. Around it, stars orbit like bees around a hive. Fast, tight, precise. We cannot see it directly, but we know it's there because of what it does. It pulls, it curves, it commands. Even more recently, in 2019, scientists captured the first image of a black hole. Not the hole itself, but its shadow. Using a global network of radio telescopes, they created a picture of the supermassive black hole in galaxy M87, 55 million light-years away. It appeared as a ring of fire, a glowing circle of gas and dust spiraling into the void, with darkness at its centre. That darkness was not empty. It was full of mass, of memory, of silence. A photograph of something we could not see, a portrait of gravity itself. And what is it like then near such a place, near the shadow that burns? Imagine a cloud of gas drifting too close. At first it feels nothing, but as it moves inward, it begins to stretch, drawn toward the centre by tidal forces so strong they pull more on one side than the other. This stretching becomes a tearing, a disassembly of form. The cloud becomes a stream, then a spiral, then a ring. It heats as it falls, glowing with X-rays, flaring with energy. It is not a silent death. It is a radiant one. The matter, just before it disappears, burns brighter than a million suns. Then it vanishes. This process is not just violent. It is instructive. Black holes, for all their mystery, are not just destroyers. They are teachers. They show us the limits of light, of time, of mass. They help us test the edges of Einstein's theories, the boundaries of what space can do. They challenge our definitions. What does it mean for something to exist if it cannot be seen, if it cannot be touched, if it hides forever beyond a horizon? And yet we feel their presence, not just in images or equations, but in the structure of the cosmos. Galaxies grow around black holes. Their shapes, their behaviours, their rhythms are tied to the hearts of darkness that lie within. Without black holes, there might be no galaxies. Without galaxies, no stars. Without stars, no planets. No us. The darkest places give birth to the brightest possibilities. Some black holes are born small from stars. Others grow large, feeding slowly over billions of years, swallowing gas and dust, merging with other black holes. These supermassive giants lie at the centres of galaxies, their hunger balanced by their slowness. But there are also stellar mass black holes, scattered throughout galaxies like seeds. Some are alone. Others belong to binary systems orbiting a star, slowly feeding off it, glowing in X-rays as they pull matter across space. Even stranger are the collisions. When two black holes spiral toward each other, they send out ripples in space-time, gravitational waves. These waves stretch and compress the universe as they pass, like a stone dropped into a pond. We detected them for the first time in 2015. Two black holes, more than 1 billion light-years away, collided, and their final embrace rang through the cosmos. We heard it with the instruments so sensitive they could measure a change smaller than the width of an atom. We listened, and the universe spoke. It spoke not in light, but in motion, not in sound, but in space itself. Gravitational waves are a new kind of seeing, a way to detect the invisible, to feel the footsteps of giants walking through the dark. Every new detection tells us a new story, of black holes merging, of neutron stars colliding, of the violent beauty that happens in silence. And perhaps one day we will know even more. Some scientists believe black holes may not be the end of the story, that inside, beyond the event horizon, space may continue, that what falls in may not be destroyed but transformed, that black holes could lead somewhere else, white holes, wormholes, bridges to other places. We do not know, we may never know. But in the mystery there is wonder, and in that wonder there is reflection. For what is a black hole, if not a reminder that even the most powerful forces can be silent, that even what we cannot see may shape our lives, that darkness is not absence but depth, that a shadow may burn not with flame but with meaning? These are the thoughts that circle the edge of understanding. They orbit us like particles around a ring. They flicker at the edge of thought, and when we listen, when we stop trying to see and instead begin to feel, we may find that the silence of black holes is not cold. It is a warmth too deep for light to hold. Let us move closer now, not to the edge of the black hole, but to the edge of what we understand. We stand at the boundary between knowing and not knowing, just as light stands at the edge of the event horizon. One more step and it vanishes, not because it has ceased to exist, but because it can no longer return. In that moment, knowledge slips beyond the grasp of eyes and equations. But the story doesn't end there. It deepens. The black hole doesn't erase what it takes, it folds it, stores it, carries it inward. And so perhaps black holes are not graveyards at all. Perhaps they are libraries. Some scientists believe that black holes hold the information of everything they swallow. Not the objects themselves, but the patterns, the data, the code, the blueprints of what once was. Quantum mechanics insists that information cannot be destroyed. So where does it go? If something falls into a black hole and we can no longer see it, is it gone forever? Or is it written somewhere, into the surface, into the spin, into the trembling skin of space-time that surrounds the singularity? This is the black hole information paradox, and it has become one of the most important mysteries in modern physics. The rules of general relativity say one thing, the rules of quantum mechanics say another, and black holes stand at the crossroad, silent, holding the answer just beyond our reach. The event horizon may be more than a border, it may be a page, an interface, a thin veil where the universe writes down everything it cannot keep. Stephen Hawking proposed that black holes may slowly emit particles, Hawking radiation, allowing them to lose mass, to shrink, to evaporate over trillions of years. If that's true, then black holes die, and if they die, then the information they held must either be released or lost. But nothing in the universe is truly lost. Even the smallest action leaves ripples. Even the most invisible presence changes something else. Black holes may seem like nothing, but their gravity shapes galaxies. Their hunger sculpts light. Their silence challenges language. And in the dance of matter and memory, they might be the final page in a book we are still learning how to read. Outside a black hole, the world bends. Gravity curves light, distorts time. A beam of light passing near a black hole doesn't follow a straight line, it arcs. A star behind a black hole may appear in two places at once, its light split and redirected. These effects are not tricks, they are truths, lensing, warping, dilation, real consequences of real mass pressed into impossible space. Around the event horizon, there may be a ring of fire, not because the black hole burns, but because the matter falling in is heated to extreme temperatures by its final desperate spirals. The result is a brilliant halo, a last glow before the fall. Some black holes spin, in fact most of them do, and when they spin they drag space itself with them. This effect, called frame dragging, means that if you hovered near a spinning black hole, space and time would twist around you. The closer you get, the more intense the spin becomes. In theory, if you were able to ride that spin just right, you could orbit the black hole forever, suspended at the edge, never falling in. A perfect balance of gravity and motion, a dance at the border of nowhere. And what of time? Near a black hole, time stretches. An hour near the event horizon could be a year, a century, a millennium to an observer far away. This is not fantasy, this is relativity. It has been measured, confirmed. Time slows in gravity. It bends, it flexes, and black holes are the deepest wells in the fabric of time. In a way, they are clocks. Strange, silent clocks whose ticking is so slow that from a distance they appear to have stopped. There is poetry in that the darkest objects in the universe might also be the most patient, that their silence is not apathy, but attention. They pull at everything, not to destroy, but to hold. Their gravity is a kind of embrace. Merciless, yes, but absolute. Once you cross the threshold, you are kept, forever, or until forever ends. And yet black holes are also creative. The material that spirals around them, called the accretion disk, is one of the brightest objects in the universe. As gas and dust fall inward, they accelerate, heat up, emit radiation. These disks can outshine entire galaxies. They send out jets, twin streams of particles that blast into space at nearly the speed of light. These jets, guided by magnetic fields, can stretch across millions of light years, injecting energy into intergalactic space, seeding the cosmos with matter. From silence comes eruption, from darkness brilliance, from collapse birth. Some galaxies have active black holes at their centers. We call them quasars or active galactic nuclei. They are not quiet. They blaze with the light of matter being consumed. Their hunger shapes the growth of their galaxies, regulates star formation, sculpts the cosmic web. We used to think black holes were passive. Now we know they are engines, ancient, invisible hearts that beat through the body of the universe. And what about those who fall in? Not just particles, but possibilities. Theoretical spacecraft, the edge of thought. Some theories suggest that inside a black hole time and space reverse. That distance becomes duration, that your path ends not in a point, but in a future unreachable from our world. Others suggest that the singularity is not the end, but a bridge, that black holes may open into new universes, that each collapse gives rise to another beginning. It's speculation, but not without purpose. These ideas stretch our understanding, invite humility, ask us to imagine what lies beyond knowing. For now, black holes remain both presence and absence. They are not fiction, they are not theory, they are real. We've seen their effects, we've heard their waves, we've photographed their shadows, we've watched stars orbit their invisible mass, and each new observation tightens the lines of a picture we are still drawing. We may never enter a black hole, but every time we look into the night sky we see the effects of their silence. Every galaxy, including our own, is shaped by one. Every starlit night is a portrait of their invisible influence. They are not only part of the universe, they are part of the reason it holds together. So the next time you think of darkness, do not imagine absence. Imagine presence so deep it cannot be undone. Imagine a silence that burns not with heat but with gravity. A shadow that pulls not toward destruction but toward transformation. Imagine that somewhere in the deepest part of the sky, something is waiting, watching, holding all that falls, not in cruelty, but in care. The black hole is not the end, it is the edge where understanding begins again. Now let us move quietly into the deepest part of this story, not to escape the dark, but to feel what it truly means. The black hole is no longer just a mystery, it is a mirror. It shows us what happens when the universe folds in on itself, when space and time become inseparable, when light is lost and yet nothing disappears. This isn't science fiction, it's the farthest edge of science and the oldest kind of wonder. A black hole is not the opposite of light. It is what happens when light is held so tightly it cannot return. For something that cannot be seen, a black hole shapes what we can see. Its gravity bends the path of starlight, lenses galaxies behind it, and pulls dust and gas into brilliant disks of radiation. In its silence it causes flare. In its darkness it causes glow. It is invisible not because it lacks impact, but because it exceeds visibility. Its presence is made known by what vanishes, and yet nothing vanishes truly. That is the paradox of the black hole. It holds memory in a place we cannot reach. The particles that fall into it, the dust, the light, the matter, they do not escape, but their information, their pattern, their identity may be etched onto the event horizon itself, not visible, not readable, but there somehow. Hawking's final contributions to science circled this idea, that the surface of a black hole may hold the ghost of everything it has consumed, that it does not destroy information, it simply encodes it in ways we do not yet understand, as if the universe keeps even its quietest records. And time too bends at the edge. What might take seconds for one observer could stretch into eternity for another. The same fall, the same motion, experienced in completely different ways depending on where one stands. From afar, someone falling toward a black hole would seem to freeze just outside the event horizon. They would appear to hover there, slowed by time's grip, fading gently into red light, never quite vanishing. But from their own perspective, they would fall in swiftly, without delay. Two truths equally real. The black hole does not choose between them, it contains them both. Perhaps that's the most humbling part. That black holes do not defy reality. They stretch it. They take what we thought we knew about light, time, mass, and distance, and bend those ideas into something deeper, something stranger, something more beautiful. The closer we look, the more we realize black holes are not emptiness. They are the fullest things that exist. At the center of our own galaxy, millions of stars orbit a point that emits no light. Their paths are sharp, fast, and unyielding. One star in particular, called S2, orbits that point every 16 years. Its motion is too perfect to ignore, too sharp to be caused by anything visible. It is dancing around something we cannot see, and that something has 4 million times the mass of the Sun. That invisible object is Sagittarius A, our galaxy's heart. Not beating with sound, but with pull, with gravity. And if you could stand at the edge of it, if you could look outward from near the event horizon, you would see the universe twisted into strange shapes. Stars would stretch into rings, time would appear to slow, the entire sky would seem to bend inward, as if space itself had become a lens. And yet within, you would feel no surface, you would not hit a wall, you would simply pass a point of no return, not marked, not felt, just crossed. But why do we care about black holes? Why do we look for them, study them, photograph them? Because they are more than extreme objects. They are tests of our theories, tests of our curiosity, and in a way, tests of our humility. They sit at the limits of what we know, and yet they hold the answers to questions we didn't even know how to ask. What is the nature of time? What happens when space is compressed to a point? Can something fall forever? And still they speak of more than science. They speak of surrender, of silence, of holding, of how something can be invisible and still shape everything. In that way, black holes are like grief, like memory, like love, powerful, invisible, shaping the motion of everything around them without being seen. You may not be able to touch the past, but you feel its pull. You may not see the future, but you orbit it. You may not understand all that holds you, but you trust that it holds. In our search for understanding, we often chase what shines, but sometimes the greatest truths are hidden in shadow. The black hole is one such truth. It burns not with light, but with presence. It teaches us not by revealing, but by withholding. It shows us that limits exist, and within those limits, beauty unfolds. And one day, long after the stars have dimmed and the galaxies have faded, the universe may become a place ruled by black holes. They will outlive everything. They will hold the last matter, the final echoes. They will persist, slowly evaporating through Hawking radiation, releasing their memories particle by particle, until even they are gone, and what remains will be silence, not empty, but full of all that came before. So the next time you gaze into the night, know this. Somewhere in that dark sky a shadow burns. It burns not with heat, but with gravity. Not with fire, but with memory. Not with sound, but with shape. And it is calling, not loudly, but deeply. Not to frighten, but to remind. That in the heart of darkness there is not only loss, there is wonder. And in the beginning there was dust. Not the kind that settles on forgotten shelves. Not the dust of decay or endings, but the dust of beginnings. Fine, drifting particles made of ancient stars and shattered time. This dust filled the early universe after the first generation of stars lived and died. When those stars collapsed or exploded, they gave the cosmos something new. Tiny grains of carbon, iron, oxygen, and silicon. Particles so small they floated weightlessly through space, catching light, curling in magnetic fields, gathering in clouds that would eventually become something else entirely. This cosmic dust, scattered across the galaxy like pollen on the wind, doesn't glow on its own. It absorbs light, hides in shadows, dims the shine of distant stars, but in its quietness, it carries memory. Every grain tells us geometry, not in words, but in structure and shape, in where it came from and where it's going. And when enough of this dust gathers, drifting slowly into thickening clouds, something extraordinary begins to happen. Gravity leans in, particles start to nudge, then stick, then clump. What was once free and drifting starts to hold together. These clouds, called molecular clouds or nebulae, are cradles for what comes next. They stretch for light years, silent and cold, full of gas and dust waiting for gravity's hand to press them inward. Within these clouds, the smallest ripples, barely noticeable changes in density, can start something vast. A patch slightly denser than the rest begins to draw matter in. Slowly, over thousands of years, it becomes a spinning core. The more it spins, the flatter it gets, forming a disk. In the center, a star is born. Around it, in that spinning disk of dust, a new dream takes shape, the dream of planets. This disk, called a protoplanetary disk, is thin, wide, and filled with possibilities. The dust within it bumps and brushes, sticks and stirs. Minute collisions form pebbles. Pebbles become rocks. Rocks gather into boulders, then planetesimals, baby worlds, not yet round, not yet stable, but growing. Some of them crash together, shattering in silence. Others merge, slowly building mass until gravity rounds them, softens their edges, and holds them tightly. These are the seeds of planets, born not in fire but in dust, in patience. And while this process unfolds, the newborn star at the center begins to shine. Its wind, streams of charged particles, pushes the remaining gas outward, clearing the space around it. What's left is a system, a star and the matter that stayed close enough long enough to become something more. Some of that matter becomes rocky planets, like Earth. Some remains gas giants, like Jupiter. Some never becomes planets at all, staying as comets, asteroids, or dust. But all of it came from the same dream, the same swirling disk of forgotten stardust now made new. Even now, when you look up at the night sky, you are seeing the product of dust that dreamed. The Earth beneath your feet is made of elements formed in stars and gathered in a protoplanetary disk. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen in your breath, all of it began as dust. And it didn't fall into place overnight. It took time, billions of years. Collisions, cooling, melting, layering, forming. Your body is not just made of stardust, it is made of stardust that waited. And the story doesn't end with Earth. Around distant stars, we now see disks of dust forming new systems. With space telescopes, we peer into the shadows of these infant solar systems, watching as rings of dust glow faintly in infrared light. Gaps in these rings suggest planets already forming, sweeping paths clear as they orbit. We are watching the story begin again, in places we cannot reach, around stars we will never touch. The dream of planets continues, not just here, but everywhere. What makes this story so quiet, so powerful, is that it begins with what most would ignore. Dust, invisible, passive, common, and yet when dust gathers, it changes everything. Dust dims stars, but it also builds them. Dust blocks light, but it creates the worlds that hold life. It is the hidden half of the story, the silence before the song, the canvas before the colour. And dust, once part of planets, does not stay fixed forever. Planets erode, collide, burn, dust returns. It is a cycle. Dust becomes planets, and planets become dust. Moons crumble, asteroids shatter. Rings form around gas giants, just as Saturn's rings are made of ice and dust left behind from broken moons or captured comets. Even on Earth, every mountain, every grain of sand is the product of ancient rock turned to dust, moved by wind, by time, by water. So the dream of dust is not a single moment. It is a rhythm, a spiral, a deep memory written into the structure of space. We are surrounded by it, moved by it, built from it. And in the vast stretches of interstellar dark, clouds of dust continue to drift, waiting for the next ripple, the next gathering, the next chance to become something more. Sometimes it's easy to believe that great things begin with power, with explosion, with the fire, with noise. But Saturn's rings remind us otherwise. So do black holes, so do planets. They all begin in quiet. In the hush of cold dust gathering gently in space, they begin when the scattered becomes connected, when the forgotten becomes focused, when the dust dares to hold together long enough to dream. The next time you look at the sky, remember this. Everything you see began as dust. The sun, the moon, the stars, the planet beneath you. And so did you. You are the product of particles that wandered for billions of years before finding each other. That held tight, that grew, that became this moment. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are what it made when the dust decided to dream. Let us drift deeper now into the middle of this quiet journey, a place between stardust and solidity, where planets are not yet born but already becoming. Imagine a young solar system forming in the soft dark of the cosmos. At its heart burns a new star, its light still finding its strength. Around it spins a wide, flat disk of gas and dust, a delicate carousel of particles circling in slow motion. Every swirl in this disk is the beginning of a shape. Every collision is a step towards something permanent. Within this swirling cloud, tiny grains of dust, each smaller than a whisper, begin to stick together. Electrostatic charges pull them close. At first, they form chains and clumps, fragile and floating. But over time, these grow, they become pebbles, then rocks. 1,000 quiet impacts every hour. It is not a violent process. It is gentle, relentless, predictable in its chaos. Some rocks rebound, others shatter. Some are lost in the warmth of the central star, but some survive, and the ones that do keep growing. This growth is not smooth. It is full of trials. As planetesimals grow, their gravity begins to matter. They tug on nearby rocks, pulling them in. Some they gather, others they shatter. They clear paths in the disk, making room for their orbits. This is the era of cosmic sculpting. Thousands of these rocky bodies, some just kilometers wide, others hundreds, compete for space, for material, for time. Some grow large enough to become protoplanets. Others are pulled into the sun or flung out into the cold dark. The solar system is a dance of balance, of growth and loss, of dreams forming and fading. And as the larger planetesimals gather more mass, a new force awakens: heat. Inside these growing worlds, radioactive elements decay, releasing warmth. That heat melts rock, separates metal from stone. The heaviest elements sink inward, forming cores. Lighter materials float to the top, forming crusts. Even at this early stage, the basic structure of planets is being written. A core, a mantle, a surface. The planet is still young, still changing, but already it has a heart. If the world grows large enough, it may attract a thin atmosphere from the disk's remaining gas. If it's too close to the star, that gas may be stripped away. If it's farther out beyond the snowline, the invisible border in the disk where water can freeze, it may grow into a gas giant, accumulating not just rock and ice, but hydrogen and helium. This is how Jupiter was born, and Saturn. Not from violence, but from quiet accumulation in the cold, thick outskirts of the disk. You are made of matter that remembers the stars. You are the shape that dust became when it believed in the possibility of life.